I think that when you talk about how you conceptually are supposed to develop functionality within games that leverages NFTs, it has to like be scaled way towards gaming fun and much less towards exploitive. And what that actually means is that games that require you to purchase NFTs as part of the onboarding process, like if you have to pay $500 to buy an NFT so that you can like play the game, that's not fun.
You're listening to the Web3 Creators Podcast, where we speak to the brightest minds and builders in crypto, DeFi, NFTs, and the metaverse. Our goal is to give you the absolute best tools for building a thriving business in the Web3 space. Now, here's your host, Hernan Arber. Let's start creating.
Creators, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Web3 Creators Podcast. Today, we have a very close friend of mine and someone that I admire a lot, not only for his podcasting abilities, but also because he's one of the builders in one of the projects that I also admire the most, which is Ultra. And we're going to speak all about that and more. So, hey, Rami, how are you?
Hi, guys. Glad to be on the show.
It's great to have you, man. So this is kind of the first interview. You told me just before we started that it's kind of weird being on the other side of the pod. So please introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about you.
Sure. So my name is Rami James. I've been building in the crypto space since I guess 2016, 2017, something like that. I know Hernan through the EOS community. We met many years ago in Tel Aviv. It was quite nice, and I have built quite a few startups here in Israel in the Web2 space, and I built a Web3 wallet in 2017 with my brother Nathan, who is now heading up the developer relations at the ENF. And funnily enough, I work now at a great company called Ultra.io, who is primarily focused on bringing blockchain technology to games through both our platform and through the blockchain technology that we've been developing. And I also work as the head of developer relations at Ultra. So two brothers went on two very different paths, but ended up so far in the same space.
Similar careers, different paths. But listen, so we of course going to get into Ultra. We're going to talk a bit about our life here as entrepreneurs in the Web3 space and in Israel. But let me understand. You started first as a designer and then got into dev. Or were you always kind of on the
So I've had a really strange path throughout my career. I actually left school quite early when I was about 14, and I finished high school when I was 15. And I started working first in computers around that time, like building computers. I migrated into a QA role at Altec Lansing here in Israel. It was my first job. I ended up doing network infrastructure for them in like 1999, something like that. And I got into Linux and I started like doing that kind of stuff.
Altec, was that a company that was doing like networking and?
So Altec Lansing is a company that focuses on audio products, and they had a research and development firm in Kfar Saba that was opened, I think in like 1997 or 1998, something like that, and ran until like 10 years ago. And they developed a lot of really interesting technology. Like, for example, they were the first company to put out a USB audio microphone on Windows 98 when the USB stack was like still in beta. And I was part of the team that helped like test it and make sure that like it worked the way that it was supposed to work.
Like I remember the plug and play was such an innovation, right? When you plug the USB and it just appears, and yeah. So then let's forward to how you started developing.
So I went through quite a few years where I worked in a string of startups. And as you know, like in startups, there's never enough hands to mete out all the work that's there, right? So like I was doing design work because I found it interesting. I like the psychology of trying to intuit how people use software, right? Because like it is programming from like a very visual perspective. You kind of have to understand functionally what people want to do. There's a lot of hierarchy built into deciding what is most prominent, what is most accessible. And eventually, like there wasn't enough bandwidth within one of the startups that I was working with. And I had some development background, and I like dug deep for a couple of years and became like a pretty decent developer, not anything spectacular, but enough to be able to get stuff done. And having like the ability to build out, build out a back end, build out a front end, conceptualize like what the vision is for the product, build out the design for the product, build out, eventually the marketing for the product. That leads you to like all of the, conceptual components that are necessary to be able to bring your own product to market. And, you know, when the opportunity arose with Nathan in 2017 to take the prototype, really the prototype that he had at Scatter, and, turn it into something which was maybe more appropriate for the market that it was trying to eventually attract. It was an interesting opportunity that was, I'd like to say that it was fun. It was very, very hard. It was very challenging. And it exposed me to, a lot of the stuff that I still didn't know that I didn't know. And along the way, I met a lot of really great people that, like lifted us up and gave us a lot of opportunities. And, some of those people ended up people that I am working with today, like at Ultra. And I think that the path that we've like walked over the last 20, 25 years to get like where I am today has been like very gratifying, very difficult, and definitely very interesting.
Yeah, no, I've always been following you guys since the Race of Scatter, and I want to put that into context because a lot of our viewers are going to be new to this. So without dwelling into that too much, because we do want to talk about gaming Ultra and what you guys are building. You guys built Scatter back in the day when EOS was launching, and that became kind of the MetaMask, the go-to wallet for all EOS purposes, because it was a very easy to use interface for all the EOS intended purposes, which was in de facto we were all using that Scatter back in the day. Now that was, of course, I imagine, very resource intensive, and it was always, not only probably taking up most of your focus, but it was really, it became kind of an operation. Now, if we go backward, that Scatter seemed like a no-brainer place to put some of the money from the ICO into some of the brilliant developers on our network. And it always blew my mind, how is Block.one not just dumping a few tens of millions of dollars into your idea and making Scatter, the either one of the official wallets, or kind of give you guys a runway to make it into what MetaMask, for example, is today. So it's a really shame that didn't came through, because for me it seemed like an obvious play. But I'm interested in how did you guys experience that? Were you in contact with Block.one? Were you expecting some kind of follow through? Or
so we actually had I think maybe half a dozen, maybe 8 meetings with Block.one over the 2.5 years, almost 3 years that like we were running Scatter. There was a lot of functionality that we wanted to build out. I think especially because Nathan and I have like a very open source mindset, that functionality needs to be to the benefit of the user and is not supposed to be extractive, if you know what I mean. Like the intent is like to build software that people use, enjoy, and like kind of gets out of their way. And the mindset at Block.one, and like I'm gonna be like careful about like how I say this, was very much about building companies that were for profit. So Block.one, their intent with their VC arm was to invest and get profit out of the investment. And like this is the way that angel investors and VCs typically work. They put in money and they expect returns. And they don't expect one-to-one returns, they expect, 10-to-1 returns. And consistently, when we came to the table, it was very clear that the potential for returns of a wallet, right, was not what the VC side of Block.one was interested in investing in. And to be honest, I think that their take on that was probably correct. I still think that they were wrong. Why? Because when you're building out an ecosystem, the tooling that you provide to your users and to the developers, because like at Scatter, we provided for both, right? We provided the wallet, but we also provided like, EOS integration software so that developers could integrate with Scatter. And they did not see the value in that because there were so many wallets in the ecosystem, and their intent was to leverage the block producer mechanism to extract value from the users, who would then pay for, effectively, the cost of development. The math did not add up for us. And at some point, like the last 6 or 9 months that we were running Scatter, we pivoted towards building an NFT marketplace, like way back in like 2019, where we prototyped everything. We had a lot of really interesting functionality that was cross-network compatible. So at the time, we supported NFT standards on Ethereum, which also meant Tron, and also EOS. And we built like a fully working prototype in, I think it was like 3 weeks. It was kind of a nightmare. And we shopped it around, and we had an offer for investment very quickly. The truth was that when we ran the numbers for the amount that we would have to give up percentage-wise of the company versus how much we would be getting runway-wise to be able to build out the organizational structure that we thought that was appropriate for an NFT marketplace at the time, it just didn't make sense. And that was pretty much the end of Scatter, because we ran out of runway. We built what we wanted to build. We couldn't get the help that we needed from Block.one, and we couldn't get into the top rankings within the block producers so that we could fund continued development, and we had no more options.
Yeah. So with that said, let's thank B1 for squandering not only our version of MetaMask on EOS, but also our potential OpenSea on EOS. So that was really sad. But anyway, that drove you guys, and you still kept your drive. You remained in the Web3 space, and you were determined to keep on building. And I guess that was what led you to connect with the guys at Ultra.
Yeah, so at the time, we were running block producers for multiple networks, and I reached out to David at Ultra to ask him like whether they needed block producers with some technical background that could consult on the work that they were doing. And David laid out the pitch for what they were really trying to build, and I found it very, very compelling. And I think 6 weeks later, we officially joined Ultra.
Guys, just a quick break from our episode to tell you how much I appreciate that you are with us here. And if you're enjoying this conversation, please take a minute to share, to like, and share it with your friends. And if you can drop me a rating in Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or a comment in YouTube, that would be lovely. So thank you very much for taking that time, and continue enjoying your episode. But let's start there. What was the idea of that kind of dream that was that, like, I guess it's the vision of Ultra that really light that bulb in you and said, okay, listen, this is a very this is a worthy cause to join.
Right. So I think worthy cause is really the right term here. When you talk about the way that gamers are exploited today via the different selling platforms and the different closed ecosystems that people are exposed to, I think that it is frankly absurd. Like I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, a long time ago, and the way the games were played back then was you would get a shareware game, you would pay a license, and then you would play your game, and that was it. It was really simple, right? And the way the games are played today is you typically have to purchase a game via some closed platform like Steam or Epic, or on a PlayStation or something like that, and you own a license for that game. You don't have physical media for that game, and the end effect is that when you're done with the game, the value that you have locked into that license is permanently attributed to you, to your account, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are many instances of players who get their accounts either hacked or banned, and the value that was in those games is lost to them forever. And when we start talking about other types of digital assets, because really those are digital assets, then it really comes back to the core proposition of what Web3 is supposed to be, which to my mind has always been authenticating the user and attributing value to that user. So when we talk about a blockchain network like Bitcoin or something like that, you have your key pair, and you have access to a certain number of tokens which are attributed to that key pair, right? Not really, but sort of. That's how it works. So that money is yours. You can do what you want with it. And I don't know if you notice this here in Israel, but if you go to the bank and you want to move a certain amount of money above 6,000 shekels for some things, 9,000 shekels for other things, which really isn't that much money. It's $3,000 now, $2,000. The bank will say, no, you're not allowed to move that money until you tell us why.
Yeah, first of all, they're going to ask you what is the meaning of this transfer? What do you want this for, or any transfer? Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I find that unacceptable.
It really makes me wonder if my money is really mine.
It's not your money. So that's exactly the point that I'm coming to. And I know that you were prompting for that, but that's really the point. Money within a national state structure is assigned to you, but is not yours. And at any given moment, a bank or a government can take your money and do whatever they want with it. They can zero your account if they feel it's necessary. And with Bitcoin and other blockchain networks, that's not true. It's really your money. And when we talk about digital ownership over assets, I feel like it's a core proposition which has a lot of facets. And when we talk about gaming, I've been a gamer since I was 5 years old on a Commodore 64. It's a meaningful part of my life. I play a lot of games. I've had a lot of cool experiences, online, offline, with my friends, by myself, and it's mine. Those experiences are mine. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you talk about digital assets in that context, the fact that they can be exparted from you, taken from you, is frankly absurd. And the core proposition at Ultra has always been that digital assets are yours to do with, and that the ecosystem is built conceptually, foundationally, at a technical level to be open. Mm-hmm. And what that actually means is that of course, we're building out our vision, our version of everything that's based on the technology that has already been deployed to the main network, but anybody else can do the same. And the openness that's allowed because of a platform like that means that, if you have competing platforms that improve both like the user experience and the longevity of the digital assets, then those are like benefits for gamers, for like people that like love playing games, which can't be taken from them. And I feel like that's very important. And for me, as somebody who like puts a lot of emotional energy into the work that he does, I think that it's very, very critical that we like deeply believe in the things that we're doing and the reasons behind what we're doing.
And I think it's such a crucial evolution for gaming, right? Because people, especially with the traditional kind of financial and startup ecosystem, people tend to, shun, oh, so great, I get a legendary sword and I can, take it out of the ecosystem and make it mine. So, like big deal. And it tends to overlook the fact that, people, and I've done this, they spend hours and hours on that game to obtain that magical legendary sword. This is not only the image or the the picture and the sound and the animation behind this sword that now can be turned into an NFT. This represents 40, 50, 60 hours of gameplay of you're gaming and finding out how to reach the new level, and that time until now has been totally it lost. You accrued hundreds of hours in building some character to a very, very, very valuable stage within the game, and whenever you kind of want to leave the game, or maybe even not even that, you'll lose access to your account, all that time and energy spent in that game is like gone, right? Because it's not yours.
Right. But I think that there's definitely that aspect, like the amount of labor that you're converting into value, right? But I think maybe that's not the full picture, because like I sit and I think a lot about how people should use NFTs within the context of games to make them fun, right? Because I don't think that so let's take a step back and like talk quickly about like why there's been such a negative reaction to NFTs within the gaming community. So, and there has like we have to be like really real about that like when you talk to like a gamer that like is just like around in the street, whatever, like they don't like NFTs. They think blockchain's all a scam. And the reason that they think that it's a scam is because they're constantly being scammed. Like when they buy a game from like Steam, and to get access to added functionality, they have to like pay for an extra a DLC, or they have to they download a game and it's free to play, but like to get like the good weapons or whatever, you have to pay $5 or $10 or hundreds of bucks or whatever it is to like get access to that stuff. Like for them, that's like not fun, and they're right, because it's not fun. And
But it
they
is the
think
business model of the biggest games out there, like
it
Fortnite and
is,
Roblox,
it
and
is.
that's what made them the size they are.
Sure. And that's like what funds continued development. Like we have to be like really realistic that there's like the other side here, the like from the developer's perspective, like this is how they pay for operations, right? They like run really expensive servers and like really expensive infrastructure. They pay like really like top-notch developers that cost a lot of money, and like operations like cost a lot to run, and like that money has to come from somewhere, right? So there has to be like this like understanding both from like the gaming community and from the developer or publisher's perspective, there has to be like a balance between like what's fun and what's exploitive. And unfortunately today, within the play to earn space, the scales are very much tipped towards exploitive and not towards fun. And I think that when you talk about how you conceptually are supposed to develop functionality within games that leverages NFTs, it has to like be scaled way towards gaming fun and much less towards exploitive. And what that actually means is that games that require you to purchase NFTs as part of the onboarding process. Like if you have to pay $500 to buy an NFT so that you can like play the game, that's not fun. You're going to have like 500
That's not
people in the
only not
entire
fun,
world.
but it's such a high barrier
Exactly.
entry that you're probably shutting off 95% of your potential, user base.
Exactly. I would much rather that NFTs be given away for free to large numbers of players who act as the marketing arm of the game. Like think about this. Like there has to be like a structure to like how you deploy a game, right? And I think that if you dump a lot of NFTs into a market for free, you mint them and you airdrop them to people, and say you mint like 50,000 of them, and you say this is how many people can play the game. That's it. Like 50,000 people at any given moment can play the game. Here you go, guys. Go have fun. And then they drop it onto the market and they say, hey, listen, like I'm done playing. What is this worth to you guys? Like, what is it worth? And a certain percentage of every sale gets popped over to the developers also, and they say, hey, listen, like here's your cut, guys. Continue development. Make sure that the stuff that you guys are putting out continues to be fun. You're rewarded for like the good work that you've already done, and like a large number of people are out there saying, hey, listen, like this was a really cool experience. This was really fun. Why don't you come play too? And I think that like kind of like building of momentum using NFTs as a marketing mechanism is a really interesting thing that like isn't being done today, because they're immediately going towards exploiting large numbers of users as a way to really fund their continued development.
Yeah, and I'll push back a bit on that the 50,000 free NFTs, because I do think that even if you give away those initial NFTs, if they are a precondition to play the game, and they somehow your game is successful and becomes valuable, you are not ready to go go to the 50 million users, because that's what all of us in Web3 are trying to achieve with gaming. We want a widely adopted game, and I think NFTs should be valuable, should be accrued, should be traded or gifted within the platform. But I don't think that this NFT as a gated experience for the game is really going to allow us to reach mass adoption.
Sure, and it's just an example. There are lots and lots of examples on the like extensive list of stuff that like I push towards developers as the way to leverage NFTs in games. Like for example, you were saying like you dumped 40 hours into a game and now you have access to a sword that gives you such and such parameters for your character that allows you to beat the boss, right? And that's valuable to you, but like once you beat the boss, it's not super valuable for you anymore. It's actually interesting to think about it. How is it valuable for competing developers? So say you have developer A who has made a game which leverages that sword, right? And now you have developer B that sees the popularity of that game and says, if you have that sword in the game, and we can check it on chain, we can actually check your account and see whether you have access because it's an NFT, it's an open API, which everybody can verify, right? Then we'll give you XYZ in our game. Why don't you come and play? Right? There's like all of these like different ways that you can play, which because of the open nature of a blockchain network, were simply never possible before. Because like for ever, if you ran a backend service as a developer, you weren't going to let your competitors check like what kind of stuff your players have, right? But those kinds of new concepts are entirely new ways to play, entirely new experiences for users that are a consequence of the open nature of blockchain networks.
Yeah, and definitely I agree that when we that approaches us towards Web3 gaming, interoperability between games, and once that is reached within the game Web3, that is going to be like probably a game over stage for the previous way that we got to know games. So let's get a bit into how you guys at Ultra are approaching this. I know you guys have a unique standard for NFTs, which is a very unique standard for those NFTs. And I would like let's try to summarize, how do you guys think that the next wave of game developers is going to, come to Ultra and explore the possibilities that you guys offer?
So when you talk about playing games, what you're actually talking about is removing friction. So that has to be for users, and that has to be for developers. So we'll start with the users. Ultra has spent a long time, like almost 4 years now, building out a bunch of technologies which allow for really easy onboarding of users. And what that actually means is that, like, we actually use the traditional EOSIO account model, where you have, like an account with multiple keys that are permissioned, which gives you access to different levels of functionality, right? We won't go too much into it. I don't know how technical your audience is. I don't think it's particularly relevant. On top of that, we built an easy blockchain account solution. What that actually means is when you log into Ultra, half of your key is kind of like kept in the Ultra client. It's not really, sort of, kind of is. And then half of the key is kept in a backend solution, like via like something very secure. I can't talk about it because there's
would you call
a
that
patent.
like MPC, multi-party computation for?
Sort of, yes.
Okay.
Okay. And when you're actually logging in, you're reassigning a key to your current device, to the computer that you're logged in, which gives you access to your account. And it's like a really technical process that you never want a user to do. It's really, really secure because it basically means that every day you're refreshing the keys to your account, which means that if they're ever compromised, like, you immediately have access to your account again, right? Which is like, if you're coming from the EOSIO world, that's like not how people use their accounts, because it's super hard, it's super complicated, it's very confusing, it's very prone to account loss because of all the confusion. I know I ran Scatter's support department for a long time. People lose their accounts all the time. It's really awful. So like, from the user's perspective, that means that they just like log in with an email, just like on Steam, whatever, and they get verified, and then they're like in, but they have all of the benefits of a blockchain account, which means that, like, they have a wallet. It's really theirs. Like, the stuff that's in there, nobody can take it away from them. That could be tokens, that could be NFTs, could be like games which have tokenized licenses, like all that stuff, really theirs. They could do whatever they want with it. So that's from like a security perspective. From a usability perspective, Ultra did away with all of the complexity of resource management. Transactions are free on the network. So like, if you're coming from Ethereum or if you're coming from EOSIO, all of that stuff is a headache. And like, it has impact on gameplay, and I'll talk about that in a second. But like, just from like a straight user experience, it's really negative. Resource management on any EOSIO network, where you have to manage your CPU, and you have to manage your net, and you have to manage your RAM, not fun. Super not fun. And we don't have that. Like, you want to do a transaction, just do the transaction. It's cool. It's on us, And like, the impact for that from the gamer's perspective is there's never a situation where they're playing a game and they don't have enough resources,
gas or resources,
or resources or whatever to cover their
wallet
costs.
is empty. That is,
which is an awful experience. Like, can you imagine going to a gamer and saying, "Hey, like, sorry, dude, you don't have $5 in your account. You can't play your game." Like that sounds like a scam, because it's a scam. It's totally a scam. And like, if you want people to come and like play games, then the expectation from their perspective should be that they get to play their game. They bought the license. They want the additional benefits of any of the like blockchain ownership stuff that is associated with their account. And they don't have to worry about any of the hoo-ha of like dealing with resources, right?
No, yeah, gameplay should be smooth, at all times. And I think UX is the crux of what we should try to be nailing it at Web3. Now, Rami, is this your first time doing developer relations as a role?
I mean, not really. So like, when I
maybe first time
officially, absolutely. And like, it's only been like a few weeks. I'm really enjoying it. But not really. So like when I was working at Scatter, developing the documentation, developing all of the resources for how people use the technology, why they use the technology, building out a support network, like all of that stuff, that's what developer relations is. And we did it. And like, there's like a very clear vision of what the right way to do it is and what the wrong way to do it is. And for the increased level of complexity that's involved in Ultra, I'm in a very unique position where I've done multiple roles within Ultra now, and I have a deep understanding both from like a technical level, like I ran the blockchain team there, which means that like how the network runs, why it runs that way, I really understand it, which means that for developers, I can really answer their questions. And because of my exposure to, you know, the business side at Ultra, it also means that like there's that facet which needs to be kind of answered to. And that's also a component of what developer relations is, because when you talk to new developers, you have to say, like, you can do these things. Here's why you would want to do these things.
All right, and now because I want to respect your time, Rami, and we're running out of it. I want you to give your your elevator pitch to game developers that are seeking, exploring Web3 possibilities. Why Ultra? How is it much better than what they've been developing so far? What would be your hey, come build your game at Ultra pitch be?
So for all the game developers out there that are NFT or blockchain curious, but like have never delved their feet into these icy cold waters, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of concepts that are very difficult to grasp. There's a lot of complexity to the potential decisions that you'll be making. And I think the best pitch that I can make towards you guys is that Ultra is building pretty much a unique way for you to be onboarded. And that means that there's a lot of hand-holding. There's a lot of excellent support for the stuff that you may not know that you need to know. And the intent is, just like we do with users, for us to be able to make your experience as easy and as comfortable as possible. So all of the headaches that you would traditionally bump up against when you're trying to conceptualize or deploy to a competing network, especially if you're talking about, Ethereum, where there's a lot of complexity and frankly, a lot of risk, Ultra is trying to help assuage and make sure that that stuff is not on you guys. It's on us as a network provider, and we're here to make your experience as good as possible.
Awesome. So I'll sum it up in like this. If you're building a game and want to get into Web3 and you're not approaching Ultra and Rami, you're missing out. So,
and if you guys are interested, then you can reach me directly at developers@ultra.io.
Awesome. Rami, listen, this has been awesome. I would gladly extend this for another hour, and we should talk, what's going on in Israel with startup scene, what just happened with the SVB Bank. There's so much stuff to discuss. But listen, I want to thank you very much for being here at the pod. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the guys that the work that you guys are doing, and I hope to see you live very soon.
Likewise. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Rami. Take care. Bye. Please keep in mind that none of what's said in this podcast should be considered financial advice. You are strongly recommended to do your own research and do not take anything we say in this podcast as a recommendation to buy or sell any assets whatsoever.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Web3 Creators Podcast. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all of your favorite platforms. And if you're serious about building your own Web3 business, head over to web3creatordojo.com and check out our courses. That's web3creatordojo.com. See you soon, creators.